Okay, so are we recording?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time we're going to be diving into the ethics of artificial intelligence.
Oh, that's a big one.
It is, it is. And honestly, kind of a tough one to wrap our heads around, right? I mean, just looking at these sources, like,
Yeah.
wow, things are moving so fast.
It's unbelievable. The pace of development is
Yeah,
really incredible.
yeah. And I think that's where the ethics part gets even more,
Absolutely.
right. It's like, how do we benefit from all of this incredible technology
Right.
without letting it, run away from us?
Well, and that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because it does feel like
It does.
every day there's some new breakthrough, some new application, and it's like, whoa, hold on, wait a minute. Are we thinking this through? We've got facial recognition technology now being used to find missing people.
I know, I saw that.
Isn't that's amazing, right? But then at the same time, you've got the potential for that same technology to be used for surveillance in a way that many would consider
Unjustified.
unjustified. Exactly. Or even worse, creating systems that are biased against certain groups.
Right.
It's a slippery slope.
It is, and that whole bias thing really gets to me. You hear about algorithms being biased, and it's like, oh, yeah, whatever. But then I was reading this one article about a company that was using an AI to screen job applicants.
Oh,
And
yeah.
guess what?
What?
It was systematically rejecting women.
It's because it was trained on data that reflected existing biases.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
it was learning from the past hiring decisions, which were already skewed.
It's a classic example of how these systems can perpetuate
Yeah.
the problems we're trying to solve.
It just makes you wonder, right? Like, how many other biases are hiding in these algorithms that we're using every day? I mean, think about it. Have you ever felt like maybe you were unfairly judged by some algorithm? Like a social media feed that only shows you certain things, or a credit score that seems off.
Or even something as simple as a product recommendation
Yeah,
that seems totally out of left field. It's like, where did that come from? But it all comes down to the data and how these systems are trained.
right. And how much data are we even feeding these systems?
Yeah.
I mean, our phones, our smart devices, everything's collecting data on us constantly.
Constantly.
And it's being used to, I don't know, personalize ads, track our movements. Who even knows anymore?
Well, and that's the scary part, right? Because one of the sources was talking about this concept of data colonialism,
Ooh, interesting.
where basically these massive data sets are collected, often without our explicit consent, and then used to exert power or influence.
That's pretty unsettling.
Yeah, it's a bit Orwellian, isn't it?
It is.
We're essentially handing over these digital versions of ourselves
Yeah.
to these companies, to these algorithms, and who knows what they're doing with it.
Right, right. And speaking of unsettling, we have to talk about AI and warfare.
Oh boy, yeah.
I mean, we've all seen the movies, right? The Terminator war games, all that stuff. But now it's not science fiction anymore.
No, it's becoming very real. In fact, one of the sources talked about this huge debate around autonomous weapons systems.
Right, the whole killer robot thing.
Exactly. And there are some valid arguments on both sides. I mean, some people say that these autonomous weapons could actually reduce casualties.
Because they wouldn't be driven by emotion.
Right, like fear or anger or revenge. They would just be following their programming.
But who's doing the programming?
Well, that's the other side of the coin, isn't it? The idea of machines making life or death decisions
Yeah,
is pretty terrifying to a lot of people.
it is. It is. And it makes you think, what even is human control anymore? I mean, if we're letting these machines make decisions about who lives and who dies.
Well, and that leads to this whole other question about AI rights.
Ooh, right.
If we're creating these machines that can learn and adapt and make decisions, at what point do we start to consider their rights? I mean, do they deserve any kind of moral consideration?
Wow.
It's a question that's starting to be asked more and more.
It's a big one.
Huge, yeah. It's not just about keeping AI under control, it's about defining our relationship with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, we've covered a lot here. From biased algorithms to data privacy to killer robots. It seems like AI ethics is a pretty massive topic.
It's not just massive, it's essential.
Right.
Because AI is going to be a part of our lives whether we like it or not. The question is, what kind of future do we want to build with it?
It's a great question. So for our listeners out there, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to really think about that. What kind of future do we want with AI?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be human in a world where machines are becoming more and more like us? Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.
All right. I think we got it. That was a good one.
Yeah, lots to think about.
AI ethics, man. It's the future knocking on our door,
Yeah.
and we better figure out how to answer it.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's wrap this up.
Sounds good.